Grace here. I'm doing a martial arts chat. Of course, like I said, I just did a dojo's tips. Why? Because I have some free time now. I'm going to do my videos. I'm going to get them out. I'm in crazy for the holidays. But this is a response video for Wushu Richard. Richard Clark, you have you gave me what I asked for. I requested a video about why you just don't really care for MMA. Because you really have like this big passionate thing about it that you just don't like it. You just like absolutely hate it, and I respect it because not everybody likes it, and that's fine with me. Because I'm not like someone who goes and hangs out and and does it in a cage either. I don't care about that stuff. That's not important. But I do see some benefits from it now. I watched your video. It was good, man. You had me cracking up. You had me rolling on some of those, some of the things that you were saying. It was just because you're very passionate about what you say and what you do. And I'm going to bring up a few just a few points. And I totally get it though. I get it now. You don't really, since you're really against violence altogether. I could see where you would see this, especially going into a competition, and people getting injured and things like that, and you don't see it worth it at all. I can't disagree with that. I can't disagree with that notion. I can't disagree with you saying these people are just setting themselves up. I agree. I totally agree. Man-made things, sports and stuff like that. When it comes to like combat sports, though, when you talk about martial arts, grappling, when you talk about and like that has spanned for thousands of years for human society. Anytime that there's been a military, anytime that there's been any type of man versus man, there's always been some sort of competitive edge. Greece had pankration, and Egypt has their own. They had their own version of stuff because there's just a lot of things. And now you can go into the history of that. People can get into the history of that. I don't care about that. I just care about the fact that you can see it recorded in all these different aspects of these different areas. People have always competed with combat. And a lot of times the competition, now this isn't for every competition, but there are times that the reason why they would compete is to see who the best guy was, who the best warrior was, who's the top dog, who was everyone looked at. Now, maybe that's just the guy that wins at the battles and keeps coming back. But at the same time, if you got a bunch of guys that keep coming back, well, if there's not really like this big set-up ranking structure, sometimes they just wanted to see who was the best. Who was the best guy? And that's the guy that stepped up, and that they would fight, and they would work it out, and then the guy still left standing is the guy that they go, oh, and that's when you got things like called bear pits, and bear pits is just this. You start off with one guy, you start off with two guys. They go in, they fight. The guy left standing stays there. Other guy's out. Fresh guy comes in, whoever finishes the fight here stays in the pit. Whether it's the same guy or not, it doesn't matter, and it's all done until the strongest of all that group is there. So, bear pits are made for that. Things like that are happening. And you can actually. I'll get in that in a minute. But so there's always been this sense of competition to see who the tougher guy is for one reason or another. So I do not see the biggest problem. Now, I do see the problem with how media and how everyone in this society is. Everyone's about talking a lot of junk. And this is what's funny. Only in the U.S. can I really see, not even the U.S. anymore. I guess it's all over the place now. People in Europe, everybody's getting involved. But it's so weird that the United States is one of the primary, like where these people get paid tons of money to do sports, whether it's basketball, football, whatever it is. They get paid tons of money, more than anyone else, to put their bodies and everything online. But for what? Entertainment. Anyone in the entertainment business gets paid buku bucks. actors, actresses, directors, writers, WWE. We got wrestlers, we have fighters, we have footballers, basketballers. Anybody that's in the entertainment business is getting paid more than the guy who's sitting at the desk or the guy working on construction. Should it be that way? Probably not, but at the same time, because these guys weren't that way before, long time ago, they weren't. And for some reason, it just started becoming this respected profession of now you guys are getting big giant money for all this. So I understand what you're saying though. I can see that now. I can really see. For the longest time, I never understood what your biggest deal with it is, and now I can see you're really very adverse against violence, and because of that, you're just like, I don't understand why anyone would go in there and damage themselves and hurt themselves on purpose. I get it. I do, man. I totally get it, and I respect that opinion. I see MMA honestly as a training tool in my school anyway, or not my school, but when I was teaching and even when I just train now, MMA is a tool. It's not even a competition for me because I'm not preparing for a competition, but I still will utilize that type of training. Now, I'm going to add stresses that they don't ever add because they're prepared for a one-on-one competition, mutual combat. I prepare myself, much like you do, for what's actually happening. And the reason why I prepare that way is because I've seen the uglier side of street. And now the reason why I know my Aikido works isn't just because I trained it. I do train it differently than I was trained it differently with my instructor, and he trained it with me. Man, I got some problem. And he trained differently with me. He was a very combative individual. He knew Shotokan and he knew Aikido, which was actually Aki Jiu-jitsu. Because if people wanted to actually kind of cut away at a bit, it is what it is. And I didn't start learning the heavy strikes and joint manipulations until, or really the heavier locks until later on in my training. So I was actually learning Aikido from my younger years up until later on when I started getting into the Aki Jiu-Jitsu side of it, and then we started learning Shotokan along with it. So it was kind of like now you're getting different sides of it. Now you're getting better striking training along with throws and grappling understanding. And then I worked with other people in judo, in jiu-jitsu, in wrestling, and stuff like that, boxing, kickboxing, kali, silat, jeet kune do, things of all these different natures, and Wing Chun. Wing Chun's one of the things I gravitate to a lot. Kali is one of the things I gravitate to a lot now more than anything. I still have a big Aikido base though. My Aiki base is where a lot of my footwork and kind of where I ultimately get into certain things, but a lot of it is more jiu-jitsu based, and I'm not talking Brazilian jiu-jitsu. The ground fighting thing, I've worked with ground fighting, but I always shock people that are Brazilian jiu-jitsu guys, like purple belts and blue belts, and they're like, okay, so what level are you? What belt are you? I said, I don't work with Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I train with guys that are Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I roll with guys that are Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but I also train with wrestlers and stuff like that. They don't have ranking systems. They're just, are they JV, varsity, all Americans? Are they, what do they do? They Greco-Roman, whatever their wrestling part is. Excuse me. And I've worked with it, but I always add that stressor. And what I mean by stressor is you have the attack, but you don't have just one attack. You have multiple things to worry about. Weapons, additional people, environment, things of that nature have to be put in there for a real pressure and test and a real understanding of whether or not your stuff is actually going to work when someone's still moving. That's why judo and jiu-jitsu and other arts, you can see why they would work just a little bit better, or they should work better, because of the fact, they should be, used better, or they should work better because of the fact that they are very dynamic. They work with the resistance and things like that. But example, you have an Olympian judoka, Ronda Rousey. You have a pro boxing champion, kickboxing champion, and MMA background person in big time in striking, but still works on grappling. She just doesn't use it a lot. She uses striking more because she's more comfortable on her feet with boxing and kickboxing. Just got in a huge fight. Now we got this bronze medalist who's been walking through everybody because her grappling skills are way above everybody, and because of her hard work, her hits, she can hit hard, and she knows how to hit. She just knows how to hit hard, but she hits like a street fighter. Street fighters hit hard, and they can knock people out. Okay, that goes without saying. But then she got in the ring with a person that was a complete and total stud. Oh, I shouldn't say stud. It's a female. Mare. No. But she was complete and total champion of striking, basically, in this striking realm. She's been beat, though. She knows she's been beat, so she knows she's beatable. So she didn't go in with the mindset that I'm not going to get beat. She thought, it's probably in the back of her head. But in the forefront, she's saying, I'm going to take this fight. In the back of her head says, everyone's beatable, even me. So she had a humbling experience already in her career. And now she's already standing here, and she stood in front of this champion that no one's been able to stand in front of, and worked her over so bad, it was ridiculous. She stuffed her throws, she did everything. So even though Ronda knows how to work with people that are in that stressing, that she knows how they move. She knows that it's gonna be rocky. She knows that when you throw a judo throw, it's not gonna be pretty in the end because people move. Everything's in this crazy order. Everything's gonna look really whack. But she couldn't get it, and it sucked. She got out muscled. And she ended up just getting out technically fought because Holly Holm was just better on her feet. She could move away from her. She would hit her, and she hit her hard. She knew how to hit her hard, and ended up knocking her out in the second round with a head kick. Something I'm sure she never thought was even gonna remotely happen because she's never been booted like that. She's never been hit like that. From all the other girls, she's never been given a clinic like that, ever. Now, so this is where I started rambling, but at the same time, what I'm talking about is, where I'm tying this in is, you have this person that knows how all this stuff happened, but it still didn't work. Someone else knows the pressure and the need of someone trying to grab onto you. She knows the pressure of someone trying to punch her and taking hits. She understood that pressure, hit any hit that she gave her, and she got hit hard a couple of times, but she knew how to work it out, not panic, get away from it, shake it off, get her bearing back, and get back into the fight. Ronda just didn't seem to be able to recover because she'd never been hit that hard, but yet she was also never taught how to handle that kind of pressure. So, what I'm saying with all this stuff, you have to add that pressure. There's always these added things. That's why I like jiu-jitsu, but that's why I like kickboxing and boxing, because that tests your timing, your footwork. How good is your footwork? How good is your timing? This is why, and I know this is what you expressed, but that's why sparring and everything is so important into your training. But the problem is where a lot of these schools get it wrong, and this is what I'm saying. I'm not saying this is how you train. I'm just saying this is what I think where a lot of people lose the determining factor of what's going to be effective and why this seems more effective. Why does MMA seem more effective, but this doesn't seem more effective? One, it started out there was not very many well-trained fighters, well-trained martial artists going into this thing. They were maybe a showdown when they got in, and they got outclassed big time by people who were higher ranked. Other people who just thought they were good at what they did, they were brawlers, and they went in and they got beat. and then it just kind of had this amalgam of really badly trained and really not very good fighters in there for a long period of time. And now the men's sport is starting to attract more and more actually well-trained martial artists. That's why you start seeing more technical things. That's why you see the rounds increasing, getting a little longer. That's why you see more kicks being done, more higher risk kicks being done. That's why you see a lot more things happening. Females have not caught, they have yet to catch up to that, but I think they're going to. I think Ronda has kind of brought that in, and now Holly Holm's going to be carrying that through, and I think more and more people are going to follow in because of it. And I think we're going to start seeing some highly skill set people in these areas, and I think we're going to see more and more advanced martial artists and better skilled people. Because also I believe the training regimen for these schools and people are changing, because they went from just these point sparring, I got you, to test their timing for their little advanced game of tag, to now they're getting a little more serious about, we need to have a little more full contact. We need to understand what it's like to take a hit, because if you don't learn how to take a hit, you can't have you don't know what it's like to be under that pressure, that you've been hit and you don't know what to do now. And that's why boxers are always, but again, I get what you're saying, the injuries. People get injured in MMA's training. They've had to cancel fights several times lately because of how many people are getting injured in training. And people go, well, it's the fight game. And it's like, well, it shouldn't be that way. You shouldn't have to, your people shouldn't suffer just because you want to make $1, and these guys are just feeling that pressure. See, another added pressure, the mental pressure. Their mental pressure to go out there, perform, and win is huge. And they want to make sure that they do. So they push too hard, they go too long, and they get hurt. That's not safe. You can't do that in a real life, and I totally agree with you. You're talking about kendo and coming there with just regular sword. I agree. There's people out there that do competition shooting and do tactical skill sets with guns. Well, you need to do the same thing with your hands, with your skill sets, with your hands, knives, and any type of weapons, any type of armed fighting or anything like that. You need to be able to do both of these things. You need to be able to, and I don't mean compete like, but the reason why competition is a little bit something that you should try to think about, and you could do that even just within your school. But going outside your school is testing the abilities you have against others of different skill sets. That helps you realize, okay, evaluate where I am, how good am I, and am I able to, do what I have to do. I even take my son to other schools that have open sparring, and I've had invites to go do this stuff, and I go to these things to test my skill set versus their skill set. Now, is it always fantastic? Is it turn out always the way? Sometimes I'm always going, I need to work on something. But because of that, I get to see that there's other ways of doing things. There might be better ways than what I'm doing it. And if you don't do that, if you don't experience that, you're just going to believe that you got the right thing, and then you get in a situation where it doesn't work. And that's where you don't want to be, especially if you're training for a real life situation. You're training for a real life situation. You can't afford to be in a situation like that. You can't afford to be in a situation where you get in a place where I don't know why I can be here. Because then you're going to end up getting hurt even worse. Worse than people will in the ring. And you might even possibly get killed. And that is not something you should ever want. That is something you should want to strive to stay away from. And especially if you have students, or if you ever strive to have students, you should have that idea that I don't want to train people in ineffective means. I want to give them drills and scenarios that is going to help them. I want to give them abilities that they need out there. Standing static and having people take the hits when you hit them is ridiculous. It doesn't work. It's not going to ever happen that way. That's why I think it's funny when I watch these people and they say, well, I take a hit here. They automatically assume that this person's going to stand there, or they go, well, we don't assume it, that's why we just keep going. It's like, yeah, but then you assume that they're still going in a straight line. They just won't cover up and move away from you, and now they're on a different side. And you're like, well, then I just change up. Well, fine. But unless you train that you're doing that, you're going to be that person that constantly does the same thing, and it's gonna get you beat up. There's a reason why people go, well, that martial artist got himself beat up. And there's a reason why Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys and why kickboxing guys and MMA guys are in the news of saving people and doing right, because of the fact that they already have the skill set, because they're working with live opponents. They know that people fighting isn't clean. It's chaos, man. It's gonna always be this non-stop thing. That's why competition is good. That's why I suggest doing things like a Kanji Cambo Bullring, which is everyone's numbered. There's one person in the middle. Everyone's numbered beforehand. No one, and the person in the middle does not know, and then the instructor just starts calling out numbers. And you give whatever stipulation you have. If they go to the ground, you got 4 seconds to get up. Whatever the stipulation is, you just do it as real as possible. You give people guns, training guns. Give them training knives. Give them, foam stick. Give them, insert weapons, insert things like that. Do 2 guys at once, 3 guys at once. Just really start making it bad. Pressures that person to understand what they're doing. Really get what they're doing. Really pay attention. Really be aware. And then you could do things like a bear pit where, hey, let's see how long people can last with each person. 1, it's conditioning. 2, it's pressure to be, I'm wore out, I'm tired, I'm hurt, and that guy's fresh. You might be sick, you might be tired, you might still have to fight a fresh opponent. These are good training tools. Now, the thing is, though, you still can keep a good control on it without injuring your people. And if you feel like it's going too far, you can end it at that moment and say, okay, we're going to rest. We're going to call it for just a second and get our air back. And we're just going to get some water in us, and we're going to do this. Because even guys who do, like the Kyokushin guys who do 100-man kumites, those guys end up retiring. And the majority of the time, they retire after they do one of those things because they have taken so many hits. They've hurt themselves and injured. So I understand completely why, with their training plus then the fight, I understand what you mean. I don't know why anyone wants to go through that. I don't know why anyone wants to put their body through that, because your body will only be with you so long and you'll break down. Man, pro football players in the U.S., they only have a year. They really suggest that they retire at the age of 35. Because their bodies won't be able to take it. So, and that's why they make so much money, so they can have money to go on. But not all the guys make money. That's the biggest thing. Not everyone is. The guys that we see and hear about the most are the ones that are making the money. The guys that aren't don't really make that much money. And they've made money, but they've not made as much as the superstars have. So you have to be a special breed of person to even make that kind of money. So that's another thing that you're talking about, is the money, going in for the money. It's like some of these guys are just doing it because they loved the sport. They thought they were going to be able to do it professionally for years, and they just don't. You're young, you go into something and you go, oh, it doesn't last forever. So no, I totally respect what you're saying, man. I do, and I appreciate your video. I appreciate you responding. I appreciate what you were doing, and I totally and I agree with you. I think we agree more than we disagree. I was bullied as a kid too, but I have a big mouth. I was very quiet when I was a kid, and I eventually became unquiet, and now I have a big mouth, and now I just say what's on my mind, and sometimes for the most part, I filter it in. And I'll try to diplomatically say the same thing that I would normally have just kind of blasted someone with. I would have just well, you know what? And just been straightforward with it and without the filter. But for the most part, I try to just be diplomatic about how I say it, but I don't try to just keep what I have in my head. Or I try to ask them what did they mean by it. So that way I'm not sitting there just thinking that they meant something completely, maybe they totally didn't mean, so you always understanding what you're trying to talk about, what they're trying to say before I even give a response. So never cow down just because you're not, if you're face to face with someone, Richard, I'm going to tell you this now, just because you're a skinny dude, it doesn't make a difference. Just because your opinion matters, so don't let anyone ever never cow down to anyone. Never put your head down to anyone and bow down to some person just because they're vocally more aggressive. Just be intelligent about it. Listen to what they're saying. Try to ask some questions, and then give an opinion that's about as diplomatic as you can get. Try not to blast them with something, but definitely try to give them an intelligent response. That way that they can at least be challenged in the way that they think. Because you should never just go, oh well, yeah. Because I mean, trust me, if we were face to face, I would have already been trying to teach you how to just express yourself in front of anyone at any time. Because I believe that's it's your right, it's your human right, it's a gift we've been all given. We got free will to do what the things that we want. But at the same time, we also should be more intelligent and more diplomatic type species, where we're not just vomiting, spewing diarrhea with the words that we have out of our mouth, and just blah, and everything's just garbage. I'm not talking now. Listen to me. I'm not talking about curse words. I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. People get that way. Everyone gets into that mode, and some people are gonna say, "I've never cursed in my life." Well, then you got other issues. So that's the whole thing. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about it, because when people are impassioned, people are angry or whatever, things happen. Okay, things happen. That's life. Okay. Now we just do the best you can without having to. Now it doesn't mean that maybe you should totally blast that dude. I don't know. Just give that guy some, but never be afraid of speaking your mind. Don't just wait for the videos. Speak your mind, even if you're face to face with someone. Well, man, this is my response to you. Thank you so much for yours. And Wushu, Richard, I totally appreciate the Wushu in front of your name. And the reason why I do appreciate that is because, Kung Fu is everything. It's a way of mastering all things. Wushu was actually the combative form of what everyone's considering Kung Fu now. It was actually the combat thing. It actually was the combative way of fighting in China. So I appreciate that. I appreciate your videos, and I appreciate you. So just continue to advance yourself. Keep studying. Don't let anyone hold you back. And don't be afraid to talk to people face to face. Speak in your mind face to face with anyone. You're just as important as anyone else. And just because their mouth is running doesn't mean that they know it all. So I appreciate you. I appreciate the things that you're doing. Keep it up and do the great work that you're doing.